Writing a critical analysis. Description. How the heck do you describe a work of art? A critical analysis is the process of coming to grips with a work of art. A critical analysis starts with description. It continues with formal analysis, which is analysis of the forms just described. A critical analysis concludes with interpretation, or a statement of what the work means or what ideas it expresses. This video will focus on description, what it is and how it is done. Description is factual. It is an orderly and objective summary of what is evident. Description opens with the subject of the work, if there is a subject, and continues with observations about the composition, details, color, and so on. Descriptive words rarely provoke argument. Most people will likely agree that, in this painting by Mark Rothko, oblong forms of green, black, and purple float in a brilliant yellow field. People may not agree, however, that this work conveys a sense of isolation, or that this abstraction makes no reference to the visible world. These statements are not description. They are opinion. The place for opinions is in your analysis and in your interpretation. Description provides the evidence that supports your opinions. Back to description. Description is the foundation, the bedrock of the critical analysis. When you describe a work of art, you are more than halfway to understanding what that work is all about. Let's take a look at Gustave Caillebot's Le Pont de l'Europe, the Europe Bridge. How might we describe it? Shall we start by finding this location on a map? Not all bridges in Paris span the Seine River. You can see how the railroad tracks entering the Gare Saint-Lazare pass underneath the Europe Bridge. Now on to the facts, because description starts with facts. Who made it? The artist is Gustave Caillebot, 1848 to 1894. Make sure to include the artist's dates the first time you mention his or her name. When was it made? In 1876. What do we know about that moment in time? France suffered a terrible defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, July 1870 to May 1871. The Third Republic was declared in 1870 after the collapse of the Second Empire. Caillebot's associates, the artists who would become known as the Impressionists, held their first group show 2 years earlier in 1874. Next, examine the work. Remember that description is more than just a litany of details. It is the construction of a whole image in the reader's mind. Description is a little like moving toward a work of art from across the gallery. At first, you see just the largest forms and the totality of the composition. As you move closer, significant details emerge. When you get very close, small details become evident. Begin your description with a summary of the composition. What is the subject, the setting, your sense of the whole? Parisians walk across the Europe Bridge. White clouds enliven the blue sky. A crisscross pattern of iron girders looms above the bridge. Elegant buildings are visible in the distance. Then move on to details. A well-dressed couple strolls toward the viewer on the bridge. Why might we think of them as well-dressed? A working-class fellow pauses, perhaps to look at the train tracks below. How might we know he could be working class? A brown and white dog trots down the bridge in the foreground. Is it the artist's dog? The worker's dog? A stray? Think about conclusions you might draw from those details. White clouds float in the blue sky. The weather is sunny and pleasant. Shadows on the pavement suggest that the time is earlier in the morning or later in the afternoon. Orthogonals formed by the road and the bridge come together at a vanishing point right behind the couple. The composition is carefully planned. Our attention is focused on the figures and their relationships. The neutral palette of grays, creams, beiges, and blues is naturalistic and fresh, what one might call impressionist. The brushwork is moderately loose, creating a pleasing, almost sketch-like texture, as though the image were painted on the spot. Do you suppose this is a plein air painting, or one created in the studio? In general, the painting has a snapshot quality, as though it were a photograph taken at random. Description conveys what the writer sees, the subject matter, formal elements, composition, qualities of the medium. Description, however, leads inevitably to a discussion of expression and the identification of possible meanings. In other words, description begs for analysis. We have started our critical analysis by constructing a secure foundation of description. We'll take up analysis more fully in the next video.